So we are starting from 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita today. The divine and the demoniac natures. Sixteen point one to 3, the Lord explains the divine nature. In fact, these are the 26 qualities are mentioned in 16.1 to 3. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Avayam Sattva Samshuddhi Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti Dhanam Damascha Yagnascha Swadhyaya Stapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodha Yaga Shantirapaisunam Daya Bhuteshu Alolupvam Martavam Harira Achapalam Teja Shamadhi Shaucham Adroho Natimanina Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim Abhijatasya Bharataha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault finding, passion for all the living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy, and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities of Son of Bharata belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. In the beginning of the 15th chapter, the banyan tree of this material world was explained. The extra roots coming out of it were compared to the activities of the living entities, some auspicious, some inauspicious. In the 9th chapter, and the asuras or the ungodly or demons were explained. Now, according to the Vedic rites, activities in the mode of goodness are considered auspicious for progress the path of liberation. And such activities are called as Devi Prakriti, transcendental by nature. those who are situated in the transcendental nature make progress on the path of liberation. For those who are acting in the modes of passion and ignorance, on the other hand, there is no possibility of liberation. Either they will have to remain in this material world as human beings, or they will descend among the species of animals, or even lower life forms. In the 16th chapter, the Lord explains both the transcendental nature and its attendant qualities, and the demoniac nature and its qualities. He also explains the advantages and disadvantages of these qualities. The word abhijatasya, in reference to one born of transcendental qualities or godly tendencies, is very significant. To beget a child in a godly atmosphere is known in the Vedic scriptures as Garbhadhan Sanskar. If the parents want a child in the godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles recommended for the social life of a human being. In Bhagavad Gita, we have studied also before that sex life for begetting a good child is Krishna himself. Sex life is not condemned provided the process is used in Krishna consciousness. Those who are in Krishna consciousness at least should not beget children like cats and dogs, but should beget them so that they may become Krishna conscious after their birth. That should be the advantage of children born of a father and mother absorbed in Krishna consciousness. The social institution known as Varnashrama Dharma, the institution dividing the society into 4 divisions of social life and 4 occupational division or castes, is not meant to divide the human society according to birth. Such divisions are in terms of educational qualifications. They are to keep the society in a state of peace and prosperity. The qualities mentioned herein are explained as transcendental qualities meant for making a person progress in spiritual understanding so that he can get liberated from the material world. In the Varnashrama institution, the sannyasi, or the person in the renounced order of life, is considered to be the head or the spiritual master of all the social statuses and orders. A Brahmana is considered to be the spiritual master of the 3 other sections of society, namely Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. Sannyasi, who is on the top of the institution, is considered to be the spiritual master of the Brahmanas also. For sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness, because a sannyasi has to be alone without any support or guarantee of support. He has simply to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of God. If one thinks after I leave my connections, who will protect me? He should not accept the renounced order of life. One must be fully convinced that Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his localized aspect as Paramatma, is always within, and that he's seeing everything. And he always knows what one intends to do. One must thus have the firm conviction that Krishna as Paramatma will take care of a soul surrendered to him. I shall never be alone, one should think, even if I live in the darkest regions of the forest. I shall be accompanied by Krishna, and he will give me all protection. That conviction is called abhayam, fearlessness. This state of mind is necessary for a person in the renounced order of life. Then he has to purify his existence. There are so many rules and regulations to be followed in the renounced order of life. Most important of all, a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to have any intimate relationship with a woman. He is even forbidden to talk with a woman in a secluded place. Lord Chaitanya was an ideal sannyasi, and when he was at Puri, His feminine devotees could not even come near to offer the respects. They were advised to go down from a distant place. This is not a sign of hatred for women as a class, but it is a stricture imposed on the sannyasi not to have close connections with women. One has to follow the rules and regulations of a particular state of life in order to purify his. For a sannyasi, intimate relations with women, possession of wealth, or sense gratification are strictly forbidden. The sannyasi was himself, and we can learn from his life that he was very strict in regards to women. Although he is considered to be the most liberal incarnation of Godhead, accepting the most fallen conditioned souls, strictly followed the rules and regulations of the sannyas order of life in connection with association with women. One of his personal associates, named Chota Haridas, was associated with Lord Chaitanya along with his other confidential personal associates. But somehow or the other, this Chota Haridas looked lustily on a young woman, and Lord Chaitanya was so strict that he had rejected him from the society of his personal associates. Lord Chaitanya said, for a sannyasi or anyone who is aspiring to get out of the clutches of material nature and trying to elevate himself to spiritual nature and go back home, back to Godhead, for him, look towards material possessions and woman for sense gratification, not even enjoying them, but just looking towards them with such a propensity is so condemned that he had better commit suicide before experiencing such illicit desires. So these are the purification. The next item is Jnana Yoga Vivasiti. Being engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. Sannyasi life is meant for distributing knowledge to the householders and others who have forgotten their real life of self-interest, spiritual advancement. Sannyasi is supposed to break from livelihood, but that mean that he's a beggar. Humility is also one of the qualifications of a transcendentally situated person. And out of sheer humility, the sannyasi goes from door to door, not exactly for the purpose of begging, but to see the householders and to awaken them to Krishna consciousness. This is the duty of the sannyasi. If he is actually advanced and and so ordered by his spiritual master, he should preach Krishna consciousness with logic and understanding. And if one is not so advanced, he should not accept the renounced order of life. But even if one has accepted the renounced order of life without sufficient knowledge, he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. A sannyasi or one in the renounced order of life must be situated in fearlessness, sattva samshuddhi, jnana yoga. So in chapter 16, it takes 1 to 9, the divine and the demoniac qualities. The Lord continues to expand on the activities of the demoniac, how demoniac people act in text 10 to 18. To 22, the Lord is explaining the consequences of demoniac activities. What is the cause of demoniac activities? What is the consequence of demoniac activities? And text 23 to 24, the Lord is talking about the choice between the divine and the demonic. That choice is ours. Srila Prabhupada explains how this divine banyan tree or this great banyan tree can be traversed up or down. And the directionality of that traversal is decided by the activities. And that is why again and again there is an explicit mention of these divine activities, as well as there is a recurring mention of the demoniac activities as well. Just like Prabhupada mentions in the purport, chapter 9 also, the demoniac activities are mentioned. So we have to understand that these activities make us traverse up or down. Certain type of activities will help us go up, and certain type of activities will help us go down. The set of these two types of activities, if we make a set, that set is what is called as nature, the divine nature and the demoniac nature. The divine nature is these 26 set of activities. The demoniac nature is what will be described further. The demoniac nature, that means the demoniac set of activities, is going to incriminate us further into complexities, entanglement, and agonies. And the divine nature is going to liberate us, the path of liberation. So the exercise of a sadhaka is to map his activities and actions to one of these sets. Map it to one of these sets. And that is the choice of the living entity. And that is so that is that the living entity can do sitting on the driver's seat. Sitting on the driver's seat. Ultimately, the choice is there with the living entity. And because the choice is there with the living entity, there is a mention. There is this mention, or rather emphatic mention about these qualities. Because the choice is there with the living entity. Because the living entity is on the driver's seat. Yes, there are provocations. These provocations are like various sounds, just like a person who's sitting on a driver's seat in a car. Now everybody else sitting is prompting where to go, where not to go. One person on the back seat is saying go right, another person saying go left, third person saying just stand, here only, stop. Another person is saying go straight. So there may be a lot of noises around, there may be a lot of callings around, but ultimately the person on the driving seat has a choice. He can drive his steering, he can turn his steering any way he likes, isn't it? Despite the provocations. So similarly, so you see, the first point which is explained is that, or the first aspect which is highlighted, or which is coming out is that, see, one should not die in ignorance. Activity is not an instinctive phenomenon. Activity is a committed choice. A choice doubly committed, that's an activity, is it not? So actions are not instinctive. It just happened. So just happening means we are in a very, so when it is instinctive, that means the level of consciousness is very low. One is deep down into the modes of ignorance. But in human form of life, one can rise to such a state where he can exercise his choice more easily. And that's where mode of goodness takes one to. So we see, whereas the modern world, when the modern day world, the modern day ideologies promote bodily consciousness. So that promotion happens in terms of encouraging and fueling the instinctive behavior. Do what you feel like. Is it not? So they want to kill or murder this choice. Is it not? They want to kill this potentiality of choice, because that's what drives their needs. Because they understand, okay, if a person allows himself to be just completely driven by greed and lust, then such a person is going to, work very hard, slog day and night, and spend all money everywhere. Is it not? And that's what is wanted. Is it not? That's a materialistic drive, instinctive. The promotion is for instinctive behavior. But we have to understand, human life starts from exercising this choice, exercising restraint. Therefore, self-control is the beginning of human life, not sense indulgence. Sense control is the beginning of human life, not sense indulgence, actually. So one should not die in ignorance. And that is why this knowledge is presented. That, okay, what is the activity which can elevate me, which is like a staircase, which can take me up? We read that 13.8 to 12 also, the staircase of knowledge, that which elevates us higher. And now we are again learning the demoniac, the divine nature, which can help us come to the mode of goodness. Prabhupada is speaking about Prabhupada is speaking from the platform of yes, which can help us come to the mode of goodness. It is the mode of goodness which is the path of liberation. And from whatever state one is in, these activities can help us come to the mode of goodness. So one should have knowledge. What should I do so that I disentangle myself? And what should I resist from doing? That which degrades me. So that's why you see, the next the Lord is going to explain demoniac qualities. Then the Lord is going to explain the consequences of doing so now demoniac qualities, then the actions, the consequent actions which the demoniac quality lead into. As case studies, you see, these are the kind of activities which these demonic people do. Then the consequences of those actions, so that one can evaluate. Activity is a strong step. Activity is a strong step. So an activity committed means a very strong result is already decided. Is it not? So activity is a strong step, which has been mentioned here, or which is being very nicely mentioned here. So therefore, Prabhupada is talking about now. The emphasis is to adopt the positive activities. The emphasis is to drive one's activity into one of these set of elevating activities. That's why 26 are mentioned. At least we should do one of them. That means whatever we do, should fall in one of them. That's the point. Whatever we do should fall in one of them. And this is what the Lord is revealing. That we have the right to choose, we have the right to restrain. Because action will lead to directionality. And action is the motion. And we can go up the divine tree, we can go down the divine. So when people say, okay, so I am in a deadlock situation, I don't understand, the situation is just, eating off my existence or burning off my existence. I really don't know what to do in this situation. So yes, in an entangled state. Now, what to do? Anything you do, you'll either go up or you'll go down. So if you happen to go up, then that will be liberating. The situation will start getting resolved. The grip will start getting looser. If you go down, the situation will worsen. That's why it is so important to stick to divine activities. Because given a situation, we add divine activities, that situation will start getting resolved. That is the point. And therefore, these pointers or these staircases or these pointers of divine activities are very important to understand. Rather, a sadhaka A sincere sadhaka doesn't wait for a deadlock situation to come to then cling on to a divine activity to rise up. He positively keeps cultivating the divine quality so that he is rising on his own only. Is it not? He's rising on his own. He's rising on his own. So he doesn't need a disaster to be able to awaken. He's already awake. Is it not? So so awakening by a disaster also happens, but it's quite painful. Is it not? But at least one should get up after a disaster. Is it not? Like that? So, but actually, a sincere person, he doesn't wait for a disaster. Rather, he's already awake, and therefore knows that therefore no waves of disaster can actually touch him whenever it comes. Is it not? If at all it comes, or if and when. So that's the point. So now here Prabhupada is explaining about the platform of fearlessness. Prabhupada is starting from the platform of fearlessness. Now, the platform of fearlessness. So actually, all of these Vaishnava qualities are needed by everyone. But certain ashramas, all of these qualities are needed by everyone. In certain ashramas, one can there is an injunction to maybe practice a little more of it. That's the only difference. Like say, okay, so here fearlessness is mentioned as a quality for sannyasi. Actually, everybody needs it. Because why everybody needs it? Everybody needs it because the entire material world runs on the platform of fear. No. Insecurity is the basic driving force of this material world, is it not? So why a person goes wild, why a person goes weird, and why all these weird patterns keep coming up? Insecurity. Is it not? The person is insecure. The person is fearful. Is it not? And so the fear, the insecurity, it is what is driving material life. So when one starts cultivating fearlessness, that means he goes out of the gravity of this world. Is it not? No. Like magnetic field can only affect if you are ferromagnetic. Is it not?